God kills indiscriminately, and so shall we. So do what it is in your nature to do. For do not doubt, you are a killer, Louis. Good evening, folks, and welcome to the Horror Corner. I'm your host, Sean Patrick Erschen, and this week we are doing another movie review. This is Interview with the Vampire, starring Tom Cruise, Brad Pitt, Antonio Banderas, and Kirsten Dunst, as well as Christian Slater. The film was directed by Neil Jordan and based on the novel of the same name by Anne Rice. Now, originally, Anne Rice didn't like the idea of Tom Cruise being in the role of the vampire Lestat. But after seeing the film, she realized she was wrong because he's absolutely fantastic in the role. I'm actually a big fan of Tom Cruise. I'll be honest, I like a lot of his films. And this is one of my absolute favorite performances by him as the vampire Lestat. He's incredibly evil. He loves what he does. He loves being a vampire. He loves killing. He loves drinking the blood of humans and living off their blood, feeding off their blood. He talks about, throughout the film, the different types of blood that he enjoys. He likes Creole blood. He likes the blood of the aristocrat. He likes the blood of a youth, but he doesn't like diplomats. He doesn't like their democratic flavor. It doesn't suit his palate. Yeah, so I love Tom Cruise in the role of the vampire Lestat. So I think this is one of the greatest vampire films ever made. It's certainly the most epic vampire movie ever made, I would say. And it's very dramatic. Excellent performances all the way through by Tom Cruise, Brad Pitt, Antonio Banderas is great. Kirsten Dunst is great, and I believe possibly her first role in a film. She was just a child then. Yeah, and the cinematography is absolutely beautiful. The way it's directed, the way it's filmed. Incredible score. This movie is just epic. That's the perfect word for it. And it is very scary at times, Whether it's a straight-up horror, I don't know if I would say that, but there is certainly some scary scenes, and it certainly has plenty of horror elements, given that we're dealing with vampires, and it's taken very, very seriously. It's not like Twilight or something, This is real serious material. And I love how it's like a period piece, and I love the character study. So the film begins, we meet Christian Slater. He works for a radio station. He's like a local shock jock or something, but he's trying to be a real journalist, And he meets this guy on the street, and he looks really interesting, so he wants to just set up an interview with him, until he realizes that he's actually a vampire, and that is Lewis, played very well by Brad Pitt. So he finds out he's a real vampire, and he shows some of his skills, the fact that he can pretty much move 10 times faster than a human could possibly move. He demonstrates extreme strength. He pins him to the ceiling at one point with his claws, He shows his fierce eyes, Awesome stuff, I love it. So he decides he's going to spare his life. He'll give him what he wants. He wants an interview, so Louis is going to sit down and tell his entire story of how he became a vampire. And it's so interesting. So as soon as he sits down, Christian Slater grabs a cigarette, and he's like, "You don't mind me smoking, do you?" He's like, "No, it doesn't bother me at all." And he's like, "Well, it's not as if you're going to die of cancer, is it?" He's like, "I don't think so." And it's kind of funny how Brad Pitt kind of shoots down some of the lore of vampires, the established lore in films like Hammer films and, you know, the old Universal Draculas, the old stake to the heart routine. He's like, that's nonsense, you know. But coffins are a necessity in this world of vampires, created by Anne Rice, of course. But crucifixes are fine, but sunlight does damage them and will kill them. But it has to be sunlight, not artificial light like a lamp or something. That won't hurt them. And I thought that was pretty cool how they established a whole different set of like rules, like in the Anne Rice world of vampires. You know, it's kind of like almost more realistic in a way, and they don't have as many weaknesses as they do in like some of the old Hammer films and stuff. So that's cool too. And I love the makeup job too, like when you see like these veins in their face and they're pale, you know, and it looks so real, you know. The costume design is incredible, you know, that period style. I love that stuff, you know. I love period movies. I always find it so interesting what life would have been like back in, you know, the 1600s and, you know, Victorian times. And this movie's almost like a Dangerous Liaisons type of movie with vampires. And it's just done so well, so incredibly well. So yeah, as Louis starts telling his story, and he tells the story of how he became a vampire. He was suicidal at one point as a human, and he just wanted to die because his wife died in childbirth, you know, and I believe the child died as well, so he felt like he had nothing to live for, and there was Lestat, ready to take away all his troubles, either to kill him or to give him the choice I never had, as he says in the film. So yeah, Lestat meets him in a dark alley and bites him on the neck and says, I'm giving you the choice I never had. You can either die or you can live forever, be immortal and be young. And it's very intriguing, isn't it? It's a very interesting aspect of being a vampire, that immortality. It's like, it would be so interesting to live like that, wouldn't it? But it comes with its share of horrors, and that's the fact that you have to kill people to survive and drink their blood. And Louis has a real problem with that, you know. He is like the reluctant vampire. He doesn't want to do it. He's not evil like Lestat. Lestat enjoys what he does. He loves what he does. But Louis does not. He lives his entire life reluctant and shows nothing but remorse and lives in pain. Like Antonio Banderas, his character appears later in the film and says, your fall from grace has been the fall of a century. You represent the vampire's broken heart. And I always thought that was really well said. Yeah, so what happens is Brad makes the choice to become a vampire. And he sees his last sunlight, you know, he sees his last sunrise. And as the dawn falls, he becomes a vampire. And he's like reborn. It's a great scene when he's like reborn as a vampire. He dies as a human and you see the breath leave his body, and then all of a sudden he's reborn, his hair is perfect, he's beautiful, you know. And he looks around at the night, and it's like words can't describe all the things he sees with his newborn powers, with his newborn sight, and that thirst for blood. He's hungry, you know. It's just really, really, really interesting, really, really well done. And what happens is, as they end up being buddies for a while, and together they walk through life for hundreds of years, and as life progresses, They pick people off one by one. And Louis and Lestat kill off whole families, you know. But again, Brad Pitt's character, Louis, is very reluctant. He doesn't really want to do that. At one point, he tries to live off the blood of animals. You see him killing rats and poodles and dogs, you know, trying to survive that way so he doesn't feel so bad about what he's doing, about taking human life. And Lestat, like, flips out. He's like, when are you going to come to your senses, you know? Do what it is in your nature to do. You are a killer. You must behave as such. You must do what's required, what it is the lore of vampires tells you to do, you know? He just doesn't understand, you know, because he's pure evil, you know? Lestat is pure evil. And I know it has been said, yeah, there is a little bit of talk about the homoeroticism of the movie, the fact that Louis and Lestat are like companions, and that may be true to an extent, but the way I see it is, I think vampires kill indiscriminately, you know. All they really care about is the blood, you know. They don't really care about the sexuality. They just use that to their advantage. It's just used as a tool, you know, against humans, to lure them in, to seduce them, and they don't care whether it's a woman or a man. It doesn't matter. All they care about is the blood because they need it to survive. So yeah, there may be some aspects of that in the film, but I think ultimately the sexuality doesn't really matter to them, you know. It's more of a tool to use to their advantage. So yeah, as the film goes on, they end up, Brad Pitt finally gives in to his urges because he meets this young girl who's about to die. Her mother died from the plague that's going around, like the Black Plague. It's picking off people one by one. It killed the mother, and she was probably going to die too. So Brad takes her life, and Tom Cruise is like, yes, you finally killed somebody. You finally did it. But he feels real bad about it. He's really distraught about it. Brad Pitt is basically the depressed vampire, you know. So what happens is Tom Cruise decides to save her and again give her the choice. Later on, when Brad Pitt finds out she did this, so you see the girl lying in the bed, and he's like, I got a present for you. And he's like, I thought I'd killed her. So Tom Cruise slits his wrists and she drinks from him, you know. And she comes back to life, and it's one of the best scenes of CGI I have ever seen to this day. And you see she's like all disheveled, all dirty, and she looks dead, you know, like she's dying. But you slowly see after she drinks the blood, her face becomes white, and you see those like little veins. And you see her hair get all like perfect and beautiful, and you see the fangs come out of her teeth, you know. It's a brilliant scene. It's so awesome. It looks so real. And yeah, it's just a perfect example of CGI and how it can be done right. Because it's seamless. You can't even tell. It looks real. So yeah, it's a great example of CGI done extremely well, and that was back in 1994 this movie came out. So here we are in 2018, and you still see movies with crappy ass CGI that's cheap looking and looks real fake. Look at this movie from 1994. Had better CGI than half of the... I mean, that was really only one scene that I can think of in the movie that was CGI. Maybe there was one or two little scenes, but that was like full-blown CGI, that one part. I always thought that was awesome, man. That's such a badass scene. I love it. Brilliant the way it's filmed. But what happens is Claudia, who is Kirsten Dunst's character, she's the little girl that becomes a vampire. She kills with all the demands of a child, you know. she's like, I want more. And she really likes to kill. You see bodies dropping dead left and right everywhere. But once she finds out who made her and why she is what she is, things start to go downhill. And she holds it against Lestat and Louis for what they've done. Because what happens is she has to stay a child. She's stuck in a child's body. She will live forever, but she will never grow up. She will never be a woman. And at one point, Tom Cruise really rips on her. She's like, oh, perhaps you will see another girl that possesses endowments that you will never have, you know. And that really cuts her deep, you know. He can be really nasty at times. So she ends up hating Lestat for what she did, because Lestat is the one that made her a vampire. Louis is the one that killed her, but Lestat is the one that made her a vampire. She holds that against him. So she sets out a plot to kill him. And they really clash, you know, Louis and Lestat and Claudia. And it gets crazy, you know. But it's awesome. It's an absolutely awesome movie. And later on, they end up meeting other vampires. For a while there, he searches everywhere, and they don't find any other vampires that exist anywhere. But after hundreds of years, they finally find someone, and that is Armand, played by Antonio Banderas, who does an excellent job in the film. This is the first time I think I saw him in a movie. Was Interview with the Vampire. An outstanding performance. Just excellent. So Antonio Banderas' character, he lives with a group of vampires who actually star in a play, on like a Broadway-style play, where they play vampires in the play. So it's like vampires pretending to be actors, pretending to be vampires. But even the play is really interesting. Even the play, I'm starting to like get into it. I'm like, this is interesting. Even the way they filmed the play scenes are really cool. Such an awesome movie. I mean, it's incredible. I highly, highly recommend this film. Just outstanding. Like I said, excellent score, phenomenal performances, excellent direction by Neil Jordan, incredible cinematography. I just think it's a 5-star classic. Absolutely one of the greatest vampire films ever made. Interview with the Vampire, starring Tom Cruise, Brad Pitt, Antonio Banderas, Kirsten Dunst, and Christian Slater. So that's my review, guys. Thank you very much for joining me, Sean Patrick Erschen, in the Horror Corner. Tune in and stay scared.